The words echoed in the sterile silence of our once shared apartment, each one a shard of glass embedding itself in my heart. You'll never find someone like me, Alex. Jessica stood by the door, her suitcase a monument to her betrayal. She wasn't crying. Her face, the same one I had sketched in notebooks and dreamed of for 7 years, was a mask of cold, defiant pride. Just an hour ago, I had walked in on her, my fiancé, with my colleague, Mark, in our bed. The bouquet of lilies I brought home to celebrate our anniversary lay crushed on the floor, their sweet scent now cloying and funereal. Someone who challenges you, who pushes you to be better, she continued, her voice devoid of the warmth I once cherished. Someone this beautiful, this ambitious. You're a comfortable man, Alex. You like your quiet nights and your architectural blueprints. You'll settle for someone plain, someone easy. But you'll always know what you lost. I couldn't form a response. My throat was a knot of disbelief and a pain so profound it felt physical. We had built a life here. Every piece of furniture, every framed photo, was a testament to a future that had just been bulldozed. Why, Jess? I finally managed, the words tasting like ash. She shrugged, a gesture of such casual cruelty it stole my breath. I got bored. Mark is exciting. He's going places. We just clicked. Clicked. A 7-year relationship, a proposal on a rainy night in Paris, a future meticulously planned, all erased by a click. She didn't even have the decency to look guilty. She looked liberated. Her final act before leaving was to adjust her hair in the hallway mirror, giving herself a satisfied smirk. The door clicked shut, and the sound was deafeningly final. The weeks that followed were a blur of hollow days and sleepless nights. I moved through life like a ghost in my own skin. At work, I'd see Mark in the hallways, and he'd have the audacity to give me a pitying look, as if I were the one who had done something wrong. I threw myself into my work, designing buildings I couldn't imagine living in, structures with strong foundations that felt like a bitter irony. Jessica's words became my tormentor, a constant, insidious whisper in my mind. You'll never find someone like me. I'd see happy couples in the park and feel a pang of jealousy so sharp it was nauseating. I'd scroll through social media and see her new life unfolding in a vibrant, glossy feed, extravagant dinners, weekend trips with Mark, captions about new beginnings and finding my soulmate. She was painting a masterpiece of happiness on the canvas of my heartbreak. My best friend, Ben, tried to pull me out of the abyss. Dude, she was toxic, he'd say over beers I barely touched. She didn't love you, she loved the way you loved her. There's a difference. She was right, though, Ben, I confessed one night, the words heavy with defeat. She was stunning, charismatic, who am I going to find that's even in her league? I'm just an architect. I draw lines on paper for a living. You're a good man, Alex. A loyal, talented, decent guy. That's a league she couldn't even dream of playing in. You just have to believe that. But I didn't. I had placed Jessica on such a high pedestal that her fall had shattered my own self-worth along with my heart. I was convinced my fate was to be the comfortable, easy man she described, destined for a life of quiet compromise. 6 months after the breakup, Ben practically dragged me to a fundraiser for our old high school's art department. It's for a good cause, he'd argued. And you need to be in a room with people who aren't your couch and your TV. I went, reluctantly. I stood awkwardly in a corner of the gallery, nursing a glass of cheap wine and feeling deeply out of place. The room was filled with the ghosts of people I used to be, of dreams I used to have. Then, my eyes landed on a series of stunning fashion photographs on the far wall. They were dynamic, artistic, and full of life. The model in the photos was breathtaking, a cascade of dark hair, eyes that held a universe of stories, and a smile that was both gentle and powerful. Incredible, aren't they? A soft voice said beside me. I turned. And my heart stopped. It was the model from the photographs. She was even more striking in person, wearing a simple black dress that made her stand out in the crowded room. She was looking at me, a small, curious smile on her lips. For a second, I was just a deer in the headlights, mesmerized. Then, a flicker of recognition sparked in her eyes. Wait a second. Alex? Alex Turner, she asked, her smile widening. I blinked, my brain struggling to connect the dots. I knew that voice, but I couldn't place the face. Not this face. I'm sorry, have we met? I asked, feeling foolish. She laughed, a sound like wind chimes. It's Maya. Maya Chin. We had Mr. Harrison's art class together, junior and senior year. You sat behind me. I used to be all braces and frizzy hair. The image snapped into place. Shy Maya. The quiet girl who was a phenomenal painter but barely spoke a word. The girl who I remembered once dropping all her charcoal pencils, and I had helped her pick them up, our hands brushing for a fleeting second. She had turned bright red and stammered a thank you. I looked from her to the photographs and back again. The transformation was astounding. Maya, wow. These photos are, you look incredible. Thanks, she said, her cheeks tinged with a faint pink that reminded me of the girl from all those years ago. It's a strange job, but it pays the bills. So, you're an architect now, right? I always knew you would be. You used to draw the most amazing buildings in the margins of your notebook. I was floored. She remembered that? You remembered that? I remember a lot of things, she said, her gaze holding mine a moment longer than necessary. I always thought you were the most talented person in that class. And the kindest. Her words were a balm on a wound I didn't know was still so open. Kindness. Talent. She saw things in me that weren't tied to Jessica's scathing assessment. For the first time in a year, a genuine, unforced smile reached my face. We stood there for an hour, talking about the past decade, our jobs, our lives. The conversation was effortless, natural. It felt easy. But not in the way Jessica meant it. It was easy like breathing. As the event wound down, she pulled out her phone. Hey, I know this is forward, but I'd love to catch up properly sometime. Maybe get coffee? I stared at her, this beautiful, successful model who remembered me as a nerdy kid drawing in a notebook, and who was now asking me out. The ghost of Jessica's voice whispered in my ear, you'll never find someone like me. For the first time, a new thought answered back. Maybe that's a good thing. I'd love that, I said, my voice steadier than it had been in a year. The 3 days between the fundraiser and our scheduled coffee date were a masterclass in self-sabotage. My mind became a battleground. One moment, I'd be replaying my conversation with Maya, feeling a flicker of hope I hadn't felt in a year. The next, Jessica's parting words would storm the castle of my confidence, razing it to the ground. She's a model, Alex. What could she possibly see in you? My inner critic, which sounded suspiciously like Jessica, would sneer. This is pity. She feels sorry for the quiet guy from high school. I almost canceled twice. I typed out the text message, hey Maya, something came up at work. So sorry, have to reschedule. But my thumb hovered over the send button. Ben, my ever-present support system, caught me staring at my phone with the tormented expression of a man about to defuse a bomb. Don't you dare, he said, snatching the phone from my hand. You are going on this date. You are going to drink coffee, you are going to talk about your cool architect job, and you are going to have a good time. Jessica doesn't get to haunt you forever. He was right. I couldn't let a ghost dictate my future. I met Maya at a small, sun-drenched cafe in a part of town I rarely visited. She was already there, sitting at a corner table by the window, sketching in a small notebook. She wasn't wearing any makeup, her hair was pulled back in a loose ponytail, and she was wearing a simple gray sweater. She looked even more beautiful than she had at the gallery, real, approachable, and serene. My heart did a nervous little flip. Hey, I said, sliding into the chair opposite her. She looked up, and her face broke into that brilliant smile. Hi, Alex. I was just doodling. Old habits die hard. She turned the notebook around. It was a quick, intricate sketch of the cafe's counter, capturing the way the light hit the chrome espresso machine. It was perfect. You're still amazing, I said, genuinely impressed. Why the modeling career instead of this? She laughed, closing the book. This is for me. The modeling pays for the freedom to do this whenever I want, without pressure. Besides, she added with a wry grin, it turns out being tall and having a symmetrical face is more lucrative than being able to draw a really good coffee cup. The conversation flowed as easily as it had at the gallery. We talked about everything and nothing. She told me about the absurdity of the fashion world, the ridiculous demands, the egos, the hours of waiting around. She spoke of it not with glamour, but with the amused detachment of an anthropologist studying a strange tribe. I told her about my latest project, a community library, and her eyes lit up. She asked about the materials, the design philosophy, the way I wanted people to feel when they walked inside. She wasn't just listening, she was hearing me. Jessica had always feigned interest, her eyes glazing over as I talked about structural integrity or load-bearing walls. She'd nod and say, "That's nice, honey," before changing the subject to a party she wanted to go to or a dress she'd seen online. With Maya, it felt like a dialogue. "I remember in high school," she said, stirring her latte, "you gave a presentation on Frank Lloyd Wright. You were so passionate. Everyone else was half asleep, but you made it sound like you were talking about magic." I was completely captivated. My cheeks grew warm. "You remember that, too?" I'm pretty sure I bored half the class to tears. "Not me," she said softly, her gaze direct. "I had a massive crush on you, you know." The confession, so casual and honest, hung in the air between us. I think I stopped breathing for a second. You did? Oh, completely, she confirmed with a laugh. You were this quiet, brilliant, and kind guy who was totally in his own world. You were so focused. I was just this gangly, shy girl who was too terrified to even say hello properly. My biggest accomplishment was when you helped me pick up my pencils and didn't laugh at how clumsy I was. I remembered that moment. I remembered her blush, the way she had mumbled her thanks without making eye contact. All this time, I had interpreted it as her being shy. I never, in a million years, would have guessed it was because she liked me. The idea was so foreign, so contrary to the narrative I had been living, that I didn't know how to process it. Jessica had made me feel like I was lucky to have her, like she had done me a favor by choosing me. The dynamic had always been imbalanced. But Maya was talking about a version of me I had forgotten, a version that was worthy of admiration on his own, long before Jessica came into the picture. I had no idea, I said, my voice barely a whisper. Well, you were a little oblivious, she teased gently. But it was sweet. As we left the cafe, the afternoon sun casting long shadows on the sidewalk, a comfortable silence settled between us. It wasn't the awkward silence of a bad date, it was the peaceful silence of two people who were simply enjoying each other's company. I had a really nice time, Alex, she said as we stopped at a crosswalk. Me too, I replied, and I meant it more than I had meant anything in a long time. Impulsively, I reached out and gently touched her arm. Hey, I know I'm not exactly a fashion model, and my life is pretty structured. Jessica's words were still there, a faint echo. But I'd really like to see you again. Maya stopped and turned to face me fully. She placed her hand over mine on her arm, her touch warm and firm. Alex, I don't care that you're not a model. And for the record, I like structured. It sounds a lot like reliable and strong. I would love to see you again. She gave my hand a light squeeze before letting go. As she walked away, turning to give me one last smile over her shoulder, I felt a crack form in the icy wall around my heart. It was a feeling I hadn't expected, hope. Not the desperate hope of winning someone back, but the quiet, budding hope of starting something new. As I watched her disappear around the corner, I realized I hadn't thought about Jessica once in the past 2 hours. It was a small victory, but it felt monumental. Our second date was Maya's idea. Enough sitting and talking, she texted. Let's do something. How about the botanical gardens? I need to sketch some orchids. The suggestion was perfect. It was a world away from the fancy, performative dates Jessica had always insisted on, dinners at restaurants where the food was less important than being seen there. A walk through a garden with Maya felt genuine, a chance to exist together without pretense. The day was bright and warm. We wandered through humid greenhouses, the air thick with the scent of damp earth and exotic flowers. Maya would stop periodically, her brow furrowed in concentration as her pencil flew across the page of her sketchbook. I'd watch her, fascinated by the way she could capture the delicate curve of a petal with a few deft strokes. She'd look up, catch me staring, and smile. What? Nothing, I'd say. I'm just admiring a master at work. She would blush, a faint color that I was quickly becoming fond of. Stop it. Show me what you're working on. I pulled out my phone and showed her the 3D renderings for the library project. Her reaction was everything I could have hoped for. She didn't just glance at it, she studied it. She zoomed in on the details, asking about the high ceilings and the large windows. You're flooding the reading rooms with natural light, she observed. That's so thoughtful. It's like you're building a space for people to grow, just like these plants. Her insight was so simple yet so profound. She understood the why behind my design, the emotion I was trying to build into the very foundation. In that moment, sharing my passion with her felt more intimate than any physical act I had shared with Jessica. We found a secluded bench by a koi pond and sat, the silence punctuated by the gentle splash of fish. It was here, in this peaceful sanctuary, that I felt safe enough to let a little of my past bleed through. It's been a rough year, I admitted, not looking at her but at the shimmering orange scales of the koi. My engagement ended. It was bad. Maya didn't pry or offer platitudes. She just waited, giving me the space to continue if I wanted to. Her patience was a gift. She cheated on me, I said, the words still sharp. And the things she said when she left, they kind of stuck with me. Made me feel like I wasn't enough. Maya turned on the bench to face me, her expression soft with empathy. Anyone who makes you feel like you're not enough was never enough for you, Alex. What she did, and what she said, that's a reflection of her. Her insecurities, her cruelty. It has nothing to do with your worth. Her hand found mine, her fingers lacing through my own. It was a simple, grounding gesture. For what it's worth, she continued, her voice gentle but firm, the guy I'm getting to know is thoughtful, incredibly talented, and has a kindness that's rare. Don't ever let someone who couldn't see that convince you it isn't there. I looked at our joined hands, then into her earnest, brown eyes. I felt a lump form in my throat, not of sadness, but of overwhelming gratitude. I gave her a small, watery smile. Thank you, Maya. You don't have to thank me for telling the truth, she said. The rest of the afternoon was light and carefree, the heavy moment having passed, leaving a deeper connection in its wake. We ended the day with ice cream cones, walking through the park like teenagers. As I walked her to her car, I knew I didn't want the day to end. I have to ask, I said, feeling a surge of bravery. Are you busy on Friday? She smiled. Not anymore. My heart soared. I was starting to believe that maybe, just maybe, I could have this. That I deserved this. That feeling lasted until Thursday evening. I was leaving my office, my mind preoccupied with blueprints and the thought of seeing Maya the next day, when a voice called my name. Alex. I froze. I knew that voice. It was a siren's call I had hoped to never hear again. I turned slowly. It was Jessica. She was standing by the entrance of my building, looking different. Her usually immaculate hair was slightly disheveled. The confident, defiant posture was gone, replaced by a vulnerability that seemed completely foreign on her. She looked tired. Jess, I said, my voice flat. What are you doing here? I needed to see you, she said, taking a step closer. The expensive perfume she always wore seemed to hang in the air, a phantom from my past. I saw on Ben's social media, you're seeing someone. I stiffened. My life isn't really your concern anymore. Is she a model? Jessica asked, a flicker of something, jealousy? Disbelief, in her eyes. Mark's friend said he saw you with a model. What do you want, Jessica? I asked, my patience wearing thin. Her facade finally cracked. A tear traced a path down her cheek. I made a mistake, Alex. A terrible, terrible mistake. She took another step, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. He's not you. Mark, it was all flash, no substance. It's over. He left me last month. A bitter, humorless laugh almost escaped me. Of course. Now that her exciting new life had imploded, she was back. I'm sorry to hear that, I said, the words automatic and hollow. I started to walk away. Wait, she cried, grabbing my arm. Her touch felt like a brand. Alex, please. What we had was real. 7 years, you can't just throw that away. I was wrong. I was stupid. But no one will ever know you like I do. No one will ever love you like I did. We can fix this. I know we can. She looked up at me, her eyes pleading, searching for the old Alex. The Alex who would have forgiven her anything. The Alex who would have taken her back in a heartbeat, just to soothe the ache of her absence. For a terrifying second, that Alex considered it. The familiarity was a powerful drug. But then I saw Maya's face in my mind, her genuine smile, her empathetic eyes, the way she held my hand by the koi pond. I thought of her words, that's a reflection of her. It has nothing to do with your worth. I gently removed Jessica's hand from my arm. I can't, Jess. Is it because of her? She asked, her voice turning sharp again. This model? Don't be naive, Alex. What does someone like that want with someone like you? It won't last. She'll get bored, just like you thought I did. Her words were meant to be poison, a final, desperate attempt to drag me back down with her. But they no longer had power. No, I said, my voice clear and steady. It's not because of her. It's because of me. You were right about one thing when you left. She looked at me, a glimmer of hope in her eyes. I'll never find someone like you, I said, meeting her gaze without flinching. And I'm finally starting to realize what a blessing that is. I turned and walked away, leaving her standing on the pavement under the streetlights. I didn't look back. Each step felt lighter than the last, as if I were shedding a weight I had been carrying for a year. The ghost was no longer haunting me. I had just exorcised it myself. Walking away from Jessica felt like breaking a fever. The cold sweat of anxiety was replaced by a clarity I hadn't experienced in years. The hold she had on me wasn't love, it was a deeply ingrained habit, a psychological tether I had just decisively severed. I didn't feel anger or even triumph, just a profound sense of peace. But I knew I couldn't move forward with Maya under false pretenses. This new, promising thing we were building deserved a foundation of honesty. My date with her was the next day, and I spent most of the night rehearsing what I would say, terrified that the drama of my past would scare her away. We had planned to go to a small, independent cinema followed by dinner. As the credits rolled on the black and white film, I could feel my anxiety mounting. My palms were sweaty. "Everything okay?" Maya asked as we stepped out into the cool night air. She had an uncanny ability to read my moods. "Yeah, can we talk for a bit before dinner?" I asked, my voice tighter than I wanted. We found a bench in a small, quiet square nearby. The city hummed around us, but it felt like we were in our own little bubble. I took a deep breath. "I ran into my ex-fiancé yesterday," I began. Maya's expression didn't change, but I saw a flicker of understanding in her eyes. She simply nodded, waiting for me to continue. I told her everything. Not just about the encounter, but about the breakup itself. I told her about coming home with the Lilies, about finding her with Mark. And then, the hardest part. I told her the exact words Jessica had used as a parting shot. She told me I'd never find someone like her, beautiful, ambitious. She said I was comfortable and that I'd end up with someone plain and easy. I recounted, the words still tasting bitter. And for the longest time, I believed her. A huge part of me believed I wasn't good enough for anyone else. Especially not someone like you. I finally dared to look at her. I expected to see pity, or worse, a dawning realization that I was damaged goods. Instead, her face was a mixture of anger and sadness, anger for Jessica's cruelty and sadness for my pain. "Alex," she said, her voice soft but fierce. "That is one of the most horrible things I've ever heard. For her to tear you down like that to justify her own betrayal, that's weakness. Not strength." She reached out, not for my hand, but to gently cup my jaw, turning my face to hers. "Listen to me. You are not comfortable in a boring way. You're steady. You're passionate about your work. You're kind. You remembered I was clumsy in high school, but you say it with fondness, not judgment. Do you have any idea how rare that is? In my line of work, everything is surface level. Finding something real, something genuine, that's the prize." She dropped her hand, but her gaze held me captive. Her saying you'd end up with someone plain wasn't an insult to your future partner. It was an insult to you. It was her way of saying you weren't worthy of beauty or excitement. And she was wrong. So wrong. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. The validation was so complete, so pure, it felt like a weight being lifted from my soul. She asked for me back. Said she'd made a mistake. "And what did you do?" Maya asked quietly. I told her no. I told her she was right, I would never find someone like her, and that it was a blessing. A slow, brilliant smile spread across Maya's face. It was like watching the sun rise. She didn't say, "I'm proud of you" or "good for you." She said something far better. "That must have been incredibly difficult," she said with profound empathy. "But you chose yourself. You chose your own peace of mind." I feel like I chose more than that, I confessed, my voice full of a new, unfamiliar confidence. "I'm choosing this. Us. Whatever this is. I want to build something new, Maya. On a strong foundation." The architectural metaphor wasn't lost on her. She leaned in and, for the first time, pressed her lips to mine. It wasn't a hesitant, questioning kiss. It was a kiss of certainty, of warmth and promise. It tasted like a new beginning. It tasted like freedom. "I'd like that very much, Mr. Turner," she whispered against my lips. Dinner that night was a celebration. The cloud of the past had finally dissipated, leaving only clear skies. We laughed, we shared stories, we made plans. The following weekend, I took her to my office on a Saturday to show her the physical model of the library. She traced the miniature hallways with her finger, her eyes wide with wonder. "It's beautiful, Alex. It's a gift to the city." As she stood there, admiring my work with genuine reverence, I saw the stark contrast between the two women who had defined the last year of my life. Jessica had seen my passion as a quaint hobby, a stable but unexciting part of the comfortable life she was settling for. Maya saw it as the very core of who I was, a source of strength and magic. A few weeks later, Maya had a big photo shoot for a magazine cover. She invited me to the set. I was hesitant, worried I'd feel out of place in her glamorous world. "Don't be silly," she'd said. "I want you there. It'll be boring, but you'll be my calm in the storm." I went. And it was a storm, a whirlwind of assistants, stylists, and photographers. But in the center of it all was Maya, a vision of poise and professionalism. In between takes, she'd catch my eye and give me a small, private wink. I wasn't the insecure boyfriend hiding in the corner. I was her partner, the person she looked to for a grounding presence. I had never felt more proud. During a break, the photographer, a famously gruff man named Antoine, came over to me. "You are the architect, yes?" he asked in a thick French accent. "Yes, that's me." She is different with you here, he said, nodding towards Maya. More relaxed. More luminous. You are good for her. Don't mess it up. I smiled. I don't plan on it. Walking home from the studio that night, hand in hand with Maya, I felt a sense of rightness that settled deep in my bones. I had not only found someone so much better than Jessica, I had found someone who helped me become a better version of myself. I was no longer the man haunted by a ghost. I was the man who was choosing the light. The 1-year anniversary of the day my world fell apart arrived not with a storm of grief, but with the quiet calm of a Sunday morning. I woke up to the smell of coffee and the sound of Maya humming softly in the kitchen of my apartment, an apartment that no longer felt like a mausoleum of a failed relationship, but a home filled with new light and laughter. She had stayed over, a regular and welcome occurrence. Her sketchbook lay open on the coffee table next to my architectural magazines. Our worlds weren't just coexisting, they were merging, creating a new, beautiful pattern. Morning, she said, handing me a mug. She was wearing one of my old t-shirts and her hair was a glorious mess. To me, she had never looked more beautiful. Thinking about anything in particular? I looked around the room. A year ago, this space was a monument to my failure. Now, it was our sanctuary. Just thinking how much can change in a year, I said, my voice thick with emotion. She wrapped her arms around my waist and rested her head on my chest. Good change, I hope. The best, I said, kissing the top of her head. The following months were a seamless continuation of that happiness. We fell into a rhythm that was both comfortable and exciting. I met her friends, a vibrant, creative group of artists and designers who welcomed me without question. She became a regular at Sunday dinners with my parents, who adored her. My mom pulled me aside once, tears in her eyes. She sees you, Alex, she'd said. She truly sees all the wonderful things about you. Ben was, of course, her biggest fan. I'm officially retiring as your therapist, he announced one night over dinner. You're cured. And can I just say? I told you so. One evening, we were invited to a prestigious gala at the city's Contemporary Art Museum. It was a major event, a confluence of the city's art, fashion, and business worlds. It was the kind of event Jessica would have killed to attend. As I put on my tuxedo, I felt a twinge, not of pain, but of irony. The old Alex would have felt like an imposter at a place like this. The new Alex, standing next to Maya in a stunning, emerald green gown, felt like he belonged. You look like you just stepped out of a movie, I told her, my voice full of awe. She straightened my bow tie. And you look like the handsome, brilliant architect who's going to design a skyscraper one day, she replied with a grin. We make a pretty good team. The museum was buzzing with energy. We mingled, we talked, we admired the art. I felt completely at ease, with her hand resting lightly on my back. It was during a lull in conversation, as we stood admiring a massive, abstract sculpture, that I saw her. Jessica. She was across the grand hall, standing alone by the bar. She was holding a glass of champagne, but she wasn't drinking it. She was just watching the crowd, a certain loneliness clinging to her like a shadow. She looked beautiful, as always, dressed in a sleek silver dress, but the defiant spark in her eyes was gone. She just looked lost. Our eyes met across the cavernous room. There was no animosity in her gaze, no lingering anger. There was just a quiet, sad recognition. Acknowledgement of a past that felt like it belonged to two different people. I didn't look away. I didn't need to hide or feel ashamed. I gave her a small, almost imperceptible nod. A nod that said, I see you. I hope you're okay. I've moved on. She held my gaze for a moment longer, then gave a slight, resigned dip of her own chin before turning back to the bar. The entire exchange lasted less than 10 seconds. What was that? Maya asked softly, having noticed the entire thing. Just closing a chapter, I said, turning my full attention back to her. I took her hand, interlacing our fingers. The book is much better now anyway. She squeezed my hand, her smile full of understanding. She didn't need to know the details. She just needed to know that I was fully present, with her. Later that evening, we stepped out onto a terrace overlooking the city skyline. The lights twinkled below us like a blanket of fallen stars. You know, I said, wrapping my arms around her as we looked out at the view. Jessica was right about one thing. Maya raised an eyebrow. Oh yeah? What's that? I never did find someone like her. I let the words hang in the air for a moment before continuing. I found someone who doesn't need to be the center of attention to feel important. Someone who sees passion as a strength, not a quirk. Someone who listens, who supports, and whose beauty on the outside is just a pale reflection of how beautiful she is on the inside. I turned her around to face me, cupping her face in my hands. I didn't find someone like her. I found someone a million times better. I found you. Tears welled in Maya's eyes, sparkling in the city lights. And I found the quiet, brilliant, kind boy from art class, she whispered. He just grew into an even better man. She kissed me, a deep, loving kiss full of all the promise of the future we were designing together. In that moment, standing on top of the world with the woman I loved, I realized the true nature of foundations. Jessica had been built on sand, all flash and glamour, destined to crumble. What I was building with Maya was built on bedrock, on honesty, mutual respect, and a love that was both comfortable and extraordinary. It was a structure designed to last a lifetime.